Bob Atkins. Bob was in the 1st Air Cavalry Division. You can stand if you want to, darling. Come on up. In 1968, and is now Vice President of the Vietnam Veterans of America, Chapter 1048, Daytona Beach. He is also the MIAP team leader of our county in this area, which is helping to facilitate the location, identification, and interment of fallen heroes who remains are already here in America but have not had a final resting place. He is also a Veterans Recovery Officer and Chairman of the Education Team of Vietnam Veterans of America for Volusia County. I think, Bob, the first question is, how many people in here, before I give Bob this, how many people know what MIAP is?
Oh, we need to tell you.
So, Bob, with that,
You're going to get an education.
with that, here you go, darling.
Thank you. Thank you very much. First of all, I can't stand back there. I'm a nervous type person and I like to walk when I talk.
Good. Come over here and talk.
Come over here and talk. Thank you. Can you hear me back there? Thank you. First of all, I want to tell you my name is Robert Atkins. I am originally a pig farmer from Ohio. That's kind of what I'm known for. But actually, I was a used car salesman for 37 years. So you know I can talk. So just hang on. Anyways, I enlisted in the United States Army in 1966. And after going through my military training at Fort Knox and Fort Dix, I ended up with the 24th Infantry Division in Augsburg and Munich, Germany. For my first year and a half in the military, I chased Fraulines and drank beer. Holy mackerel, did I have a great time. And then one morning at 4 o'clock in the morning, I get a notice that there's have an alert, and they pulled us out of the barracks and went downstairs. And by orders of the President of the United States at that time, Lyndon Baines Johnson, I was in a company of 96 men in Munich at that time, 50 of us with orders to Vietnam. And as my last name being Atkins, everything is in alphabetical order in the military. I was the first person out of that 24th Infantry Division with orders to Vietnam. And I went to Vietnam in December of 1967. At that time, I was an E5. I was a specialist with an M60 machine gun, a light weapons specialist. Also an M14 rifle. When I went to Vietnam, they handed me an M16 rifle. Never seen one in my life. And I'm going to war with this thing that I have never slept with. And in the military, and believe me, and in the war situation, you sleep with your weapon. And I got this new bride of mine, this M16, that I had to learn real quick. But anyways, I was sent forward from An Khê in South Vietnam to I Corps along with Rod at that time. Rod being in another division, we didn't know that. Terry Shack over here was also with the 1st Cavalry Division. Him and I are almost in Vietnam to the same day. But he was an artillery person and we never ever met until one day about 5 years ago, we got invited to a Vietnam Veterans of America meeting and we met. And now we are all brothers. We can absolutely look at one another and tell what's on our minds. But anyways, at that time, me being a kind of a senior NCO, because everybody that was coming into Vietnam at that time were draftees and first enlistment into the military. Reason I got sent there is because they needed people with some experience in the Army. Well, that's me. I got experience chasing Fraulines and drinking beer. So first of all, they sent me up north to I Corps when the word came out that probably the Tet Offense was going to break out. We had no idea what that was, but we knew there was something going on because they all wanted these ceasefires and everything so they could get ready to try to come and kick our butts, what they couldn't do. But anyways, I, being a E5 buck sergeant, at that time I became a platoon sergeant in a forward position with 17 men who at that time, 90 days earlier, was sitting at home having dinner with their parents. And now I got them in a war situation. These 17 guys, all privates and PFCs, looks at me and says, Sergeant Atkins, are you going to get us home? And I said, absolutely I am. I have to. That's our mission here. So we're going to go through this war together, and we're going to win, and we're going to go home. We're going to do everything that it takes to go home, and I'm going to get you there. Unfortunately, and out of those 17 people, I lost one soldier. My job and our job was from Camp Evans, which is in the northern part of I Corps. It's the most northern part of South Vietnam, as Rod Phillips was telling you. My job was securing these convoys with M60 machine guns from Camp Evans, which is near Way, you all heard of Way, up to Quan Tri, and eventually in April, I was one of the first men in the 1st Cavalry Division to go into Quai Son to relieve the Marines. When I got there, I couldn't figure out what we were hauling. We were hauling, as I found out later, and what we were protecting was lye. Does anybody here know what lye is? That white substance that you put on the ground, and plague had broke out in Quai Son. So we all had to go get glamoglobulia shots. And I pulled into Quai Son and seen the awfulest thing that I've ever seen in my life. I seen stacks of bodies in that area of the enemy. But anyways, we went in there and we put lye on all of those bodies, and then eventually we got out of there. And eventually, every soldier that was in Quai Son at that time, we got them out and went on continuously with the war. But anyways, war is something that I hope that no one ever has to seek in their life to see what goes on. I hope that your kids, your grandkids, and your great kids never ever have to go in and see war. War is a hellacious thing, and I want to tell you something. I am a veterans. I love veterans, and I made a promise for the rest of my life, whatever I can do for a veteran, I'm going to do it. So that leads up to MIAP. I was sitting with Rod Phillips in Lake Mary about 1.5 years ago, and the subject came up in a state Vietnam veterans meeting about MIAP, Missing in America Project. Someone got up and said, oh, we got cremation remains sitting in funeral homes right here in Florida that's been there for years and years, and no one's getting them buried. I said, you're kidding. That's not going on in this country. Let me tell you something. Once I got involved and I got seeking and asking questions, I found out that there are hundreds and hundreds, and across this nation there are thousands of our veterans and our veterans' wives that are sitting on shelves in funeral homes that no one has ever came back to get, or never has had a proper burial in a national cemetery. I said, I'm in. This is something I'm going to do the rest of my life, is I'm going to get out of here and I attend these funeral homes. I have been made by the governor of Florida, I have permission to go into these funeral homes to find my brothers and sisters. Not anybody on the streets can do that, but I have been given the authorization. Last Wednesday, I was at Lake Worth, South Florida National Cemetery. I buried 19 veterans, 5 veterans' wives. I was a pallbearer for one of those veterans. This lady, whose name was Jacqueline Elizabeth Howard. She was a lieutenant in the United States Navy, World War II. I'm assuming she was a nurse. I'm just assuming that. Mrs. Howard, Lieutenant Howard, had passed away in 1980. She has been sitting on a shelf in South Florida in a funeral home since 1980, waiting on my organization to come and find her and get her proper military burial. Out of those 19 veterans that we did bury them, one of them had been sitting on a shelf for 51 years until we came along, found them, and got them buried down there. I personally, myself, have been working on this project right here in Volusia County. I have been working in the past year or so with Mr. Bob Clark over here, Dee's husband. He understands what we go through to go in and find these veterans. It's very important, and also, I'm not a beggar at this, but I want to tell you something. It does cost us money to do this. So I'm always looking for a donation. If you ever want to donate to MIAP, or I have a card, you can put it right into our Vietnam Veterans mailbox, and I will make sure that it goes to MIAP. What those funds are needed for is you got to put people's names in newspapers. You know it's expensive when they pass away. We need chairs. We need death certificates. We need tents. It goes on and on. But we fund this across America and right here in the state of Florida. Anytime that you donate to MIP.us, if you want to go online and look at the website and see the history of what's going on with these veterans that are laying, and you could also become a supporter. But it breaks my heart every time. I have attended in the last year and a half, I have attended 5 call to honors, and I have been a pallbearer or a director in every one of those, and I will continue doing this until I cannot walk no more, and then hopefully I'll have my wife back here, Kathy, shove me in a wheelchair to make sure that I'm out here helping to get these veterans buried. It's important. It's an honor. It is absolutely one of the greatest feelings I've ever get is when I go into that funeral home and I find a veteran, man, it's like a high that you can't believe. I found a brother sitting on a shelf. What a high. And it's even better when I'm at that columbarium and I'm handing that urn over to a military full-time officer so that they can put them in that columbarium. As I said, it took this lieutenant almost 40 years from when she died that we got her into that columbarium. But anytime that you want to speak to any of us about that, I'm available at any time. Dee knows where I'm at, Bob Clark knows where I'm at, and there are people in this room who know me and they know what I do. But it is important to me that we get our veterans buried. I'm telling you, we got to honor these people for what they have done. When I was in Vietnam, I was there at the time when there was thousands of Americans killed in Vietnam. And it's unbelievable to know that some of my brothers are still sitting on a shelf somewhere that can't get buried with a decent burial in a national cemetery where they belong. I personally will have a date for Call to Honor number 22, hoping in January, first part of February. But I have at this time, I have approximately 20 veterans that are in my possession, and when I say in my possession, that is on paper, that I will bury at Cape Canaveral National Cemetery. And I will get the word out to DAR, and I hope that I get to see each and every one of you there for a military burial to get these 20 people buried with honor the way that they should go. But anyways, also, at this time I'm also involved in, I am the chair of the education for this county, as Dee was telling you. I take a team of soldiers and soldiers' wives, Terry and Diane Shack. They've never missed one of the programs with. We go into the local high schools and colleges and we talk about and we teach about the Vietnam War and the 60s. We're good at it. We are living history. We can sit and tell these kids till the cows come home about who we are and what we've done. It is very, very important to all you veterans that are sitting in here at this time that you got to tell your story. Your story has got to be told. I don't care how many times you think that you're wearing your story out, you're not. You got to tell that story so that our memories will never ever be forgotten.
We tell our stories to deaf ears all the time.
But it is so important. I understand what possibly this gentleman's talking about over here, but it's important. That's the only way that the generations behind us is going to carry this on. But also in closing, I want to close this up. I could sit here and tell you for hours about what Vietnam Veterans of America does. We are in all the communities and we are there to help veterans, and we don't care what era of veterans that they are there. We are there helping veterans. We recently just took a cemetery on. We spent Monday, we had 17 of us for 7 hours at the Oak Ridge Cemetery. We went in and cleaned every cemetery, every grave in there. There's 120 veterans in there. We cleaned our headstones. We straightened our headstones. We put fresh flags on them. We made sure that it was weed whacked. On Monday, if you're ever in the area of that cemetery, you can drive into Oak Ridge Cemetery and you can see exactly what Vietnam veterans do for all veterans. And we will carry that on till the day that we pass on ourselves. So at this time, I know that you probably had enough of me, but I want to thank you, and thank you from the bottom of my heart. And I want to just also say at this time, you know, there's a lot going on in our country right now with the divide. It's terrible. Let's not divide. Let's not divide. This is our country. We fought for our country. We built this country. And I would just want, every time that you see a flag, I just want you to look at it and say, God bless America. Thank you.